Welcome to the Warren Files, presenting true insights and experiences from the paranormal world, with your host, Chris McKinnell, Director of the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research.
Hello and welcome to the Warren Files. I'm your host, Chris McKinnell, the Director of the Warren Legacy Foundation for Paranormal Research. Today, we are very lucky to be joined by a dear friend of mine in Glasgow, Scotland, George Wiley. George, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you. Thank you.
Now, George is an incredibly gifted medium. He and I are going to be doing a series of lectures and seminars this spring of 2020 in Great Britain, Ireland, and Holland, perhaps a few other venues we're looking into. We'll be giving introductions on the paranormal, explaining things, presenting evidence, and in our seminars, we'll be giving an in-depth introduction for people who are interested in this field of study. George, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am known as a medium and a psychic. Lots of people use the terminology psychic medium. I believe I know they're two very different things, and putting them together is a bit of a contradiction. I can explain that a little bit later. My story started before I can even remember. My mum told me, so my moment, I suppose, is when I was 18. My great-grandmother had sadly passed away. I was part of the family kind of support where we were offering her, some peace and some care and loving, because she wanted to pass away at home. So when she passed away, I lived on my own. I was 18 at the time. And 4 weeks to the day, I woke up with the feeling of someone stepping up from the base of my bed. Now, I lived on my own, so that first and foremost was a little bit strange.
Uh-huh.
But as I looked, there was my grandmother, my great-grandmother, Rosie. We called her Nana Rosie, and she was at the base of my bed, kind of standing almost in the doorway. So I had heard of these stories happening. So for me, being the inquisitive mind, I thought, well, I must be dreaming. But then I stood up, I got up, and as I started to walk towards her, as she was still there, she then, in front of my eyes, disappeared. It's probably the clearest manifestation of spirit I have ever witnessed in my entire life. I'm now at this point 37. And so some weird things started to happen. I became very aware of other people's emotions, and I was kind of having memories that were living through my mind that were not my own. So I had a friend come over a few months in when I've been experiencing these strange kind of experiences, and I really couldn't make sense of it. I didn't know how to put it together. So this night I'm sitting with a friend. We were new friends. We'd met at college. And I said, as I was looking at her, I could see a chestnut. And I couldn't understand why, when she was speaking to me this entire night, I could see in my mind, I was having like this thought in my mind of a chestnut. And I eventually said to her, I have this really strange, and she knew that I was having weird experiences, but I never really put anything together other than that I genuinely thought I was going off my head. I went to the doctors and I spoke to the doctor and I said, I'm seeing things, I'm kind of hearing thoughts in my mind. So they had then sent me to the psychiatric hospital and they were having me being dealt with there. And all of this, while this was all going on, within a matter of a number of months. And I said to my friend this evening, I see this chestnut when I'm looking at you, and I don't know why. The shock on her face was like she kind of turned sheet white.
You're talking about a chestnut tree.
No, so we call them conkers over here, but the little brown chestnuts that fall from the tree?
Oh, yes. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so we call them conkers because what we would do is we would drill a hole in the middle, or mum and dad would. We would tie a shoelace, and as a game, we would kind of try to whack each other's chestnut hanging from the lace to see who could break it. So we call them conkers, but everyone knows them as little brown chestnut that they fall from the tree. So I could see this image in my mind. And so I remember saying this to my friend, and she kind of went sheet white, like, you know, that shocked expression when someone's being told news that they were not prepared to receive, that kind of look. And the first response from her was, tell me more. And I really didn't understand why she wanted. So she encouraged me to kind of try and look at this chestnut. And she didn't know anything about mediumship or psychic or anything. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I started to tell her things. And what had actually happened was her uncle had sadly taken his life. And the tree that he had taken his life from, they all collected chestnuts from when they all went to kind of lay flowers as a family. So the memory of this chestnut was so important that it was kind of like groundbreaking for her to hear this information, and then for me to kind of expand the story and show. So for me starting, she kind of really encouraged me to be open about it. So I then eventually built up the courage to kind of come out to my mum as a medium, or as I thought it was at the time, a psychic. And my mum's response was, yeah, I know. And yeah, and I laughed too, but I kind of laughed like nervously, like, what? So she said, you were always a strange child. And I thought she was being offensive because my mum's really, really sarcastic. And she's like, no, she's like, I come from a really big family, and I would be in the bedroom with my friend that wasn't there. And I was like, Mum, you know, I can see this lady or this man or this little boy, and we need 2 drinks, and I need a sandwich for my friend because I could see this person. Like, my mum said, you believed that this person was actually there, but you knew that they came and went. So this happened and stayed with me until I was 9. And then my mum said, to her relief, it left. Because we would be uptown, and I would maybe be 6 and 7, and I would be meeting my mum's friend, and we'd walk away, and I'd say to my mum, that's a real shame that this lady's dad was, you know, was unwell and he's in the spirit world, or I didn't really understand it as the spirit world, but that's what I was seeing, was this maybe my mum's friend's dad who was dead, but I was then talking to him, you know. So my mum said when it left, it was a relief. I have no memory of that. Like the years up until 9, like I don't remember speaking to anyone, having a gift, nothing. So for
a lot
me,
of kids don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part for me, and to hear other people's stories, because a family can tell you, but obviously a lot of it is put down to imaginary friends. So they don't see it as anything else, as imaginary friend. My mum knew, she was clever enough to realise that this was more than just me having an imaginary friend or two, because I was saying stuff that was really detailed, you know, that I shouldn't know. So fast forward to 18, wake up as a medium, kind of, if that's the way you want to look at it. And I kind of really found my footing through working with spirit guides, developing. I met a mutual friend who was into mediumship, and I kind of learned that way, and have learned over the years of experience. I've worked with some amazing mediums. So that's where we are to this kind of present moment.
You know, that really fascinates me. It reminds me of, well, a couple of things, a couple of stories. My most vivid spiritual encounter, even with, you know, all of the dark things that I've dealt with, the most positive human spiritual encounter I ever had was very similar to yours. It was a few weeks after somebody incredibly important to me had died, and I was woken up by her footsteps coming down the hallway. And I knew it was her. Yeah, I know her footsteps. And I opened my eyes, and in the mirror of the bedroom door, I could see my reflection, and I could see her in bed behind me with her arm propped up, looking down at me. And I closed my eyes very quickly because I didn't want her to disappear. I didn't want to believe this was it, And she got down in front of me and she said right in front of my face, "Chris, I love you." And then she kissed me on the lips.
Oh.
And she was gone. That was her second visitation, but it was the most vivid.
Do you know the most wonderful thing, though, that I get to tell clients now? That in the moment of sadness that we have when we lose someone, that the pain that they were in the end of their life, or their body was maybe sore, or they passed tragically, when they get to the spirit world, it's an afterlife, but it's not really the word to describe afterlife, because they're no longer alive in a physical body, but the soul transcends. The soul is the essence of who we are, and that transcends to be part of this divine consciousness where we are, and then effectively in what we call the spirit world. So then they are still alive, and they live on. So we may not
for a person who's dying, once they've died, it's a coming home party. For them, it's a celebration. For their loved ones who have passed as well, this is a reunion. It's only difficult for the ones they leave behind.
Yeah. But I think it's really important for people's grieving process to understand that you keep them alive by telling their stories, by sharing their memories, by the children and the grandchildren and the brothers and sisters they leave behind. The story that, we often tell stories of family members and we laugh and joke about some of the funniest moments. Everyone thinks that when I talk about my grandmother, not my great grandmother, but my grandmother, who I was probably the closest to, everyone thinks she's a raging alcoholic, because all I talk about is the fact that she drunk and she had vodka in the tumble dryer so that no other family members knew that she was drinking expensive vodka. But she loved the vodka, but she had so much more of a life than just being an alcoholic. But I then think, well, when I tell people these stories, they laugh because she is hilarious, but she was unconsciously hilarious in her life. So then I keep her memory alive because of that. And people then learn about her as a person, not because she's coming through someone and talking from the spirit world, but just because we are sharing their stories. I think that's really important for people to remember.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind that I find helpful, two things. One is when you do have like a family gathering or a holiday or wedding or funeral, those spirits are attracted because you're remembering them, because you're sharing those memories. They're attracted to those events. They do come back. They do visit. You may not be aware of them, but they're there.
Yeah. I've had so many people in the spirit world mention significant dates that have passed. Like, for example, a 40th birthday that may have happened in January, and they all had a party. And I've had maybe the mum or the auntie or the gran in the spirit world say, I was at the party and, this happened and something significant. So the family member knows that they were there, but actually they're celebrating because all the family love comes together, and the spirit world are attracted to that love and that, because everyone seems to think the spirit world that everything's spooky and bad. Like, TV has created that image of everything.
It's terrible. It's terrible. So, they're just people.
But that's it. They're just people no longer in a physical body. And the physical, I tell you, one of the biggest things, Chris, that people have a kind of, oh my goodness moment to, is when I explain to clients every time that I see them, do remember that the spirit world do not communicate the way that we communicate. They look at me puzzled and I point to my voice box and I say, they do not talk with a voice box. And people still don't get it. And I'm like, the voice box is a physical part of your physical body. So, for example, if the voice box is removed and you have damage to your voice box, you have to then use sign language to communicate, because the voice box then doesn't work. So the voice box is the physical body. Your soul transcends and you're part of the spirit world. There is no voice box. And then people's minds are kind of like blown, like they don't understand it. And I'm like, they communicate through thought. Very few mediums alive on the earth genuinely can communicate. I can hear the spirit world clairaudiently, which is hearing spirit. They like objective clairaudience is hearing outside of the body, and then subjective is internally. And trying to explain that to people who are developing mediums who genuinely think they can hear the spirit world. So my challenge is to them is you can't get it wrong, because you can hear them, and then they get a little bit kind of, well, yeah, I can hear them sometimes. And kind of then what I have to do is say to them, listen, you're hearing it subjectively, which what happens is, like if I said to you, think of I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston, you hear the song
that
in your
was
mind.
what I was thinking about when my loved one did say that to me. I was certain I heard it physically in my ears.
And so then, but have you then thought about, did you hear it objectively outside of your body, or did you actually hear it subjectively, which is like when you hear a song, the thought of the song is playing in your mind, but what happens is the thought is dropped into the mind, and then the clear cognizance, which is the thought part, sorts it out. So then you think you hear it, but you're not actually hearing it. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, I've heard you explain this before, and it always fascinates me. It does make sense. And that's the thing. I mean, this has only happened to me 5 or 6 times in my life. Like when a friend would be in trouble, a particularly close friend, in my late teens, I would hear my name called. And for me, it certainly sounded outside my body. It wasn't like Chris inside my head. It was Chris.
Yeah, but that is different, because I believe that spirit do try and get our attention to particular unique events or moments in our life. And so then they will make a kind of, because I've heard my grandmother shout me from the other room, and I know, like, I heard that outside, but I don't, there's a difference from hearing it in that moment than someone being genuinely 100% clairaudient externally, like objectively. Does that make sense?
I'll struggle with that one.
We can talk about that deeper another time.
But I have another friend and her daughter, very gifted. She's similar to you, but she's not disciplined. And she's in like her early 20s now. And she used to be a waitress, and she would serve tea to a spirit and have conversations with that spirit. And the people around her are like, what the heck is she doing? Because she could not tell that this person had passed. Which actually brings us to, what is it with psychics? I mean, most of them are, they certainly start out like you. They question themselves. They're not sure what's going on. How do you instill that discipline so that you're able to take control over your abilities?
Firstly, hard work. Dedication is probably the biggest thing that I say to any students that I've worked with. You have to put in the time. What a lot of them don't understand is the difference between a psychic and a medium, and they all think it's all kind of one kind of thing. So it's not. So psychic,
what are they?
So the word psychic means of soul. So it means to read the soul of a person. So a psychic is someone that is a sensitive person, where they can tune into you and read your auric field, and they can then get impressions where they will pick up from your relationship, your job, your family, your worries, your emotional state. And so a psychic can kind of imagine like someone who reads Braille. That's kind of the easiest way that I always find to describe it. Someone who reads Braille, they're feeling things to get the information. So they may read Braille, or they may touch a piece of material and know that it's denim and not silk, that kind of idea. So a psychic tunes in soul to soul. They read and have impressions from the person or a piece of jewelry, or a photograph, or a jumper, or a hat, or a scarf, and they will get impressions and information that will glean into the clairvoyant vision. So the clairvoyant vision will work as a psychic, and you're sensing the things, but you're seeing it build up as an image in the clairvoyant vision, kind of like a YouTube video in your head. But then what you have to do is make sure that you're interpreting the information correctly, because you may see something that relates to your life, and so then your own mind gets in the way of the psychic impression. Right. So medium is someone that speaks to the spirit world. So the person who, a medium's job is to prove the existence of eternal life. So a medium then doesn't work soul to soul, because the medium, you can be, so to be, every medium is psychic, but not every psychic is a medium. So to be a medium, you have to be a damn good psychic. So then a medium will always sense the spirit world coming in from behind. The spirit world will come in and they will use what we call the clairvoyant vision as well, but they will use the claircognizance, which is the mind, the kind of knowing part. So for me, I'm very claircognizant. So what they do is they drop in their memories, and they will drop their memories and their thoughts into my mind. That's then projected onto my clairvoyant vision like the TV screen, and then it's backed up by what we call clairsentience, which is the feeling part, which is then I may have a woman coming in speaking to her husband who's sitting in front of me in the physical. The wife is in the spirit world, and she will come in and she will share the memories so that gentleman knows that I'm communicating with his wife. It may be a significant story, a date, a song, a month of the year. I may see her, handing me candles, and then the candles are then show me a picture of a calendar, with the month of February, and I know the candles significantly. I can see a 60, so I can then say, oh, there's a 60th birthday in February. She's blowing the candles out, saying get kind of like that. But then with that, I may feel clairsentiently the emotion behind that candle being blown out, where she's happy but she's sad. So I know she's happy for the 60th birthday, but she's sad that she was not here in the physical to share that 60th birthday of her husband. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So for discipline. People, who don't have that discipline, obviously they can suffer from debilitating anxiety, especially I find with empaths. They're a low level sensitive. It is definitely a psychic gift, but it's one, unfortunately, where you pick up a lot of the emotions and energy of the people around you. Those people can also drain your energy. They can leave you depressed or exhausted. And as I said, a lot of them suffer from debilitating anxiety. And that brings us back to the question of how does one protect themselves? How does one get that discipline?
So the two different parts are, so the first thing that people will say is meditation. There's two different things here: meditation and building the power. So meditation is something that we do, and which is a passive thing. So what that means is you go into yourself. So to meditate, you're quieting the mind. You can't ever shut the mind off, because the mind is like a monkey. It's always buzzing and always going. So we have to quieten the mind, quieten the body, still, putting on nice relaxing music, maybe lighting a candle, sitting somewhere comfortable. And you want to meditate if you want to keep yourself grounded and you want to relax and shut off from the outside world, but you will never meditate to work with the spirit world. And what a lot of people do is they teach meditation as a way to communicate with the spirit world, but what they're actually doing is making it 10 times as difficult for themselves to get to that point. Because to meditate, you go passive and go quiet. To build the power, you want to reach the spirit world, which is the active state. So an active state is something that you would do where we ignite the chakras. So the chakras are 7 points that we have within the body. The first one being the root chakra represents grounding, which is kind of just about where your tailbone is. Then there is the sacral chakra, which is kind of just below your belly button. And that kind of represents mostly fertility, sexuality, creativity. The solar plexus is in the center of the stomach, and that is for power and energy. The heart chakra, which is represented in the center of the chest, is for love, passion, emotion, feeling. Throat chakra is in the obvious place in the throat, which is represent for voice and communication. Third eye is between your eyebrows and the center of your forehead, and that's for clairvoyance, vision, and sight. And then the crown chakra is like the top of the head, and that represents knowledge, connectivity, and memory. Each of those has a color association to them. So then there's red, kind of amber, golden yellow, green, blue, violet, and indigo. So those are the chakras. We would ignite those, stimulating those. And what we would do as a medium is we offer those to the spirit world. And you can offer those to the spirit world where you build the power, igniting that energy. You know, I always feel like I'm connected with the earth, so I see the energy of the earth beneath my feet, and I kind of use that mindset of the everything being eternal, from the cycle of being born, coming through, and connecting to spirit. When I've offered myself to the spirit world, chakra-wise, I know that each of these faculties, which represent within the chakras, they all have a kind of association. I know if I have a woman in the spirit world who feels love for the husband, that's going to run through my heart chakra, and it's going to be that I know I've done my part to the spirit world and I'm ready to work. So the discipline comes with learning to be aware of your senses, be aware of knowing if you're picking things up. So like exercises we can do, Chris, is if you get a friend to give you a photograph inside an envelope, and you want to sense that photograph, so you want to then be able to give to your friend information that comes to you in the screen of the mind where you're psychically picking that up. You're probably not going to get spirit world coming in there. You're going to then psychically feel that information, or maybe get a friend to give a piece of jewellery that might be a ring that belonged to their grandmother. So then that person has to know that information, so that when you as a psychic, you want to hold it in your hand and just kind of allow the screen of the mind to start projecting information and just feeling it, seeing it almost. I always see it as a piece of light coming from your hand, passing up through your body into the screen of the mind, because as a psychic, visualization is really, really important. When you start to then feel that you're receiving that information, you have to feed that back. But that's also something that you need to then just practice. And psychometry exercises are really good for the psychic sense.
Right. And psychometry, again, is when you're able to pick up the energy from an object that has been beloved to somebody, or has some form of energetic attachment to somebody for one reason or another. Now, one thing, you mentioned the chakras. Do you recommend that a person who's just learning try to open up their chakras, or that they get help before they start doing that?
Not even so much get help. I mean, I don't want this to sound like a shameless plug, but I have a power build exercise on my website. But it's probably the one thing that I would say that people could go on and download, that they can use. And it was recorded naturally as I was taking people on a journey through that. I would say it's something that if you're a medium, and the power building is for the mediumship, and meditation is more for something you would do as a psychic if you want to just learn to control and quieten things down. I would always seek advice from people that are professionals within the Legacy Foundation. Reach out to me if they want to, and I will offer as much of advice as I can. I always say to people, do not run before you can walk. People want to be mediums on the platform, on the stage, delivering messages before they have no idea what they are doing. They're opening themselves up to things that they don't know what to do. Start small. Start learning to meditate, to quieten yourself down. Because if you build the power, you want to then meditate at the end. You want to maybe get yourself into a meditative state, so you're being aware of when you're open and when you're closed. Because a lot of people
you want to center yourself.
Yeah. So building the power and igniting the chakras, yes, educate yourself, understand that more, taking yourself on that journey. But also then you want to do some meditation work. Find a good piece of meditation. There's loads on YouTube, some nice guided meditations that maybe take you on a journey walking to a beach or into a forest and taking you on that journey because they're good because they talk you through it, going there and coming back. Or finding nice music. Because if you're going to activate yourself by building your power, you then want to make sure that you're using something meditative to close yourself down. You never shut off because you can't shut off your feelings. You can't shut off your emotions, but you want to just quieten yourself down and find a nice center. I think as a good psychic or a medium, you want to make sure that you can control your meditative states so that you're aware that if you know how to quieten yourself down and you master that, then if you're in the supermarket and you're packing something up or you're on a bus and you're feeling the impressions of something, like you might feel anxious all of a sudden. You don't know why, but you've got this anxious, depressive feeling. That could just be you open without realizing and picking up from someone else on the bus or, in the train station or something. So just finding that moment to just center yourself. Most people today, Chris, walk about with headphones on. So having a piece of audio on your phone that if you're feeling really energized and really erratic, finding that meditative thing to discipline yourself, to quieten yourself down. You never want to shut yourself off, and nobody can really, because then you would just be detached, and there is no way of shutting yourself off completely because we all have to feel natural emotion. But being aware when you're on or when you're off. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And, one website that I recommend for wonderful meditations is www.doyogawithme.com. There are some terrific exercises and meditations on there. And if people want to download your information, they can go to georgemedium.com. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So there's a power building and there's a journey to the white space, which is then taking you to meet your spirit guides and building a relationship as a medium to work with your guides. And those are really simple processes that people can do. But it's, I think with anyone, what they need to realize is that they have to learn to discipline themselves religiously and doing exercises that will enhance that and being prepared to take no's, because everyone wants to be right, and then you're never going to learn if you're always correct. I'm still 18 years along this journey. I'm still learning from the people that I read for, because my own mind can interpret the information in a different way, and before I know it, I've completely disconnected from spirit because my own memories have taken me in a different path.
So absolutely, and that's really important, I think, because psychics can become very, like anybody, can become very self-conscious. You have to be willing to be wrong and to accept that. And this 100%. Is how you do the power building, is by exercise. You're going to get it wrong more often than not at the beginning. And even when you're great, you're going to make mistakes. Everyone does. It is very easy for a psychic to be led down a rabbit hole.
Yes.
By that I mean to be easily misled. If somebody is deliberately trying to mislead you, or if you let your emotions get in the way. I mean, even my grandmother, Lorraine Warren, wonderful, amazing psychic. She couldn't read her loved ones, not at all, because her emotions were always on. She always was full of love. She couldn't see if I had done something wrong, thank God.
Yeah.
So, another way, obviously, that people can protect themselves, besides meditating, psychic grounding. It is incredibly effective both for anxiety sufferers, just to go out in your bare feet on the bare earth. But for a psychic who's been overwhelmed or drained, getting that bare earth connection, your feet on the ground, and allowing all of that negative energy that you've picked up to drain away, and allowing all that good energy from the earth, that healthy energy, to refill you, is so amazingly helpful.
Absolutely. And I'm very fortunate where I live in Scotland that I'm surrounded by beaches and forests and castles and really, really nice places with nature. And I recommend anyone who is overwhelmed as a psychic
to move to Scotland.
Yeah, well, move to Scotland. Yeah, because the population we've got loads of land, there's space everywhere. But yeah, I'm surrounded by fields and beaches, and so I'm really lucky that when I'm overwhelmed, I only need to walk to the top of the road to be, to have a river running and to have trees around me and be surrounded by the essence and the energy of nature. Because as a psychic, everything is about energy, because you a person's energy. A medium is very different because when you're building the power, I recommend building the power twice a week, and I try to meditate. And this is a really good challenge for anyone who says, I don't have time to meditate. Set a minute on your phone, 1 minute, 60 seconds, put your phone on silent apart from allowing the beeper to go, and sit wherever you are, close your eyes, and give yourself 1 minute of just with your thoughts, and have yourself just be still and present in the moment for 1 minute. When the beeper goes off, it's a minute more than you done yesterday. So I then say to students, set a minute and a half next week. And then try and aim for 5 minutes of stillness, because you have no idea how much that affects your own energy to be still and to be present in the moment. So and also crystals is a phenomenal way, Chris, for people to use crystals. For they are natural from the earth, they are charged, they have natural energy that they have. I'm not a massive source of knowledge with crystals, but what I will say is there is an amazing book called The Crystal Bible. You'll get it from most places, Amazon. You can download it, but people have a physical copy, and it's a tiny little book, but it is packed with phenomenal knowledge on how to use crystals in your daily life and for other things. I use an amethyst and a clear quartz with me every time I work. Every time I'm working with spirit, I have those with me because they help me ground, and they also help me fine-tune my clairvoyant vision.
Absolutely. And another resource that's available to everybody, if they are a psychic, is one of our two psychic support groups through the Warren Legacy Foundation on Facebook. One is for Spanish speakers, which is really not going to be very helpful for this particular audience. And one, of course, is for our English speakers. That's Warren Legacy Foundation Psychic Support Group. We do ask that everyone answers 3 questions. They're very simple questions. Number 1, are you a psychic? What are your abilities? Number 2, what can you offer the group? And number 3, do you agree to abide by our rules? And as long as you answer those 3 questions to our satisfaction, then we are more than happy to include you in our group. You'll find if you are somebody who's been struggling with these abilities, or somebody who wants to develop them or just learn to control them, most of the people who say, I finally found my community, I finally found my tribe. And I think it's one of the best things that I've ever been involved with. I'm really proud of those people. They're terrific folks. So, and then, by the way, that also includes empaths. For some reason, empaths don't seem to think that they're psychic, but they are. It's a low-level form of psychic ability, but they are psychic. So, there's this one thing that's always fascinated me, George.
Yep.
You're a happily married gay man.
Yep.
And I've noticed, and I only noticed this once I started working with the psychic support group, is most of the men who are psychic are either gay or bisexual. Why?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is it because they have to be more sensitive to their surroundings? Or is it because they happen to be more sensitive that they are more psychic?
Yeah, it's something that I've always noticed. Like, I would say a good 80% at least of the men that I know that are in the spiritual movement are gay or bisexual. And so it's kind of something that I've discussed quite openly. It's kind of expected as well. If you're going to see a male medium or psychic, they're going to be gay or bisexual. So it's kind of always puzzled me as to, at first, I suppose I looked at it and said, well, the why is for me that that we're all extremely sensitive. Like gay people in general, gay men are very, very in touch with their feminine side, their feminine emotions. And I don't want to offend anyone by that, but it's predominantly that we're a lot more feminine-like in the sense where we're a lot emotionally sensitive, because women are
more available, emotionally
Yeah.
available. I mean, I'm heterosexual, but I was that kid. I was that kid who was protecting the fly that the other kids wanted to pull the wings off of. I've always been extra sensitive and I always said, in touch with my feminine side.
Yeah.
So I assume that's why I am more prone to these gifts. I mean, I've shut them off for the most part in my life. It's only recently that I've kind of gone back to embracing them, because in my younger days, I scared people. I knew too much. But yeah, I think you've got a point. I think it's that sensitivity.
We have to be prepared as psychics or mediums that when we are delivering information, and I think I know like the biggest majority of audience is women to booking a medium or a psychic, maybe for a reading. So I think maybe this is weird to say, but I often think that if a woman is coming to bear herself emotionally about her grief or her failed marriage or her problems in her life, having a big butch rugby heterosexual man is probably not going to be the easiest to receive from. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So gay guys are more in touch with their feminine side. They're more emotionally driven. I kind of, in general, like I'm kind of giving this a sweeping umbrella where, we're all caught under that same thing where gay guys tend to be very emotionally sensitive. And as a medium or a psychic, you have to be really, really emotionally sensitive and prepared to touch on subjects that might not be, women especially don't want to, especially if they're going to see a psychic and they've went through a really traumatic childhood or marriage, that they don't want to go to a guy who is not sensitive to that.
I think also that the fact that you are more open to a person means that those people are drawn to you more readily, that they're more open to you. And that makes for a much better psychic connection. Most men, typical men, and excuse me for these broad generalizations, but they tend to be more closed off. They're taught to not be as emotionally available. And I've noticed this also in hauntings. The woman will be certain that stuff is happening, and the husband is like, yeah, right. There's nothing going on here.
Isn't it fun? That's a really interesting point, actually, because the majority of men in hauntings are the last people to convince. The women and the children, who are a lot more predominantly emotionally open, are way more victim's a really strong word, but are way more susceptible to the things going on than the man in the house.
Exactly. Yeah, and that can be a good thing for the guy, but a real impediment to helping the rest of the family.
Yeah, especially if the family are experiencing it and he's like in complete disbelief.
Yes, exactly. It makes it so much harder to help them.
And that must be difficult, or has been difficult for you as an investigator on some, really big high profile cases where you're having to come into a household where the man is the head of the household and kind of having to. Did that ever?
Oh, constantly. constantly.
Okay.
You know, but the thing is, by the time it really gets that bad, the the man of the house is starting to get a little desperate himself. He knows something's happening. He doesn't understand it. He may be in some denial, but he knows that, yeah, he needs some help now.
Yeah.
You know, it's just when things are a typical human haunting. And yeah, things are moving. People feel like they're being stared at or watched. They hear little noises here and there. The man is far more likely to want to explain all of that away. You know, you're just being overly sensitive, or you know, it's just the wind, or the timbers in the house are settling, or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I'm that guy too. I'm that guy that always looks for the natural, but there comes a point where you just have to accept that maybe it's not so natural and it's more supernatural.
Yeah.
So there's a question for you.
Okay.
Do you, you know, for me, the way I look at the world, you know, we talk about paranormal and normal and natural and supernatural and preternatural. Personally, I hate labels. I don't really like them. I understand that people need them to understand things better. But to me, it's a continuum. I think everything is natural. It's just some things are understood and some things are not. How do you define, well, first, let's go back. How do you define spirit? Because you use that often to say spirit does this and spirit does that. And to me, sometimes when you say that, I'm thinking, is he talking about spirit world, or is he talking about individual spirits? What does you mean when you use the word spirit?
When I use the word spirit, it's always to describe the people in the spirit world. So the spirit, as I'm talking about the mum and the dad and the brother and the sister and the granny and the granddad, you know, those are the people in the spirit world, if you want to call it that. When I talk about them, it's always that I'm saying that spirit told me this, or when I was reading someone, the spirit world in general came forward, i.e., maybe 3 members of the family come forward and communicate through me and prove the existence of eternal life by telling me information and evidence that I should never know. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I was thinking earlier when you were talking about how it's different for people after they leave their bodies. And for me, the image I got in my head was that in life, you're like a car driver, and you're moving very quickly through life. But in the spirits are like pedestrians. They've left their cars. They're moving at a totally different pace. And it's very difficult for somebody driving down the road to have a conversation with a pedestrian.
Absolutely. It's a really good way to describe it.
You know, what is it like in your experience? What is it like for them once they've passed over? Is it like a material existence?
It's joy. If anything, if I could sum it up in one word, it's joy. The first moments of transition from what I know is frustration a lot of the time, because what happens is the husband may, for example, have a heart attack, and his mum and dad are there to collect him in the spirit world, and you know his sister might be there, and there's this joy from them that they're there to help him transition to the spirit world. But he's looking at his wife sitting by his body in tears, and he's like, well, I don't want to be with you guys. I know you guys have been dead for 30 years. I want to be with my wife. So in that moment, there is a slight frustration, not all the time, but there's that kind of moment of realizing. But then what happens is all of the family come in, and the spirit world, the spirit family all come in, and they all, we have a life review where they look at their life as a whole, and there's peace and there's healing, and all of that happens very, very quickly. For me, in my mind, it's just peace, pain-free joy, happiness. And then a lot of their mission is that they want to be around their family they visit them. Now, people say, are they there all the time? And I'm like, were they there in your life, in the physical, 24/7? The answer is always no. Were they there when you went to the bathroom? No. Were they there when you went to bed at night? No. So they're not like that in the spirit world. They're not going to come and watch you have a wee. They're not going to come and watch you sleep in your bed, snoring your head off. No. They come and visit you to share that love, to, maybe give you a sign that they are there because you've been seeking to heal from the grief and the pain, regardless if it's 5 minutes or 10 years down the line. And also, there's a big misunderstanding, Chris, on spirit making, like, getting our attention. I'm going to give you a very quick story that I always think is so important. A really, really well prominent medium who I respect massively told me this story, that what happened was she had a family contact her because there was disturbances happening in their house. What she done was she visited the home because they said that the house was being tormented, right? And things were moving, there was noises, there was footsteps, and the family were terrified. There was the mum, the dad, and a young boy in early high school age, so about 12 years of age. Okay, she went to the home, and there was a young boy in the spirit world of the similar age to the boy who was alive in the house. And what this boy in the spirit world, who was a passerby, he was passing through because he used to live in that house with his mum and dad, and he passed away due to taking drugs. And what he was doing was he was getting the attention of the family who lived there. So this woman came in, she connected with a young boy in the spirit world, and he told her that there was to go to the cupboard in the back of the home, and to go up on the top shelf to the back. So she went in, she told the family what to do, what this boy in the spirit world was saying, and they pulled out, and there was some drugs. What had happened is the young boy who was alive was in school and was being picked on and being bullied by these older boys to keep these drugs, and he was being bullied. So the boy in the spirit world who passed through a drug overdose was trying to get the attention to let them know that, listen, I don't want him to be like, so he was helping. Right. So what people always think is that when the things go bump in the night, that the spirit world are trying to throw things at us and pin us down, and it's all fear, but our fear feeds that worry.
Exactly.
And then, so what actually, a lot of things that happen is natural, peaceful family members trying to get attention to cause some to actually help rather than always torment. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And that is a message I try to give people constantly, that fear is the real enemy, that, most people are good people. Most spirits are good spirits. There are spirits that do get trapped. They're in denial. They don't want to pass over. They don't believe they're dead. And so they'll go back to where they were most comfortable in life. They may cause some trouble, but it's only because you're rooting around in their home. They're afraid. They don't understand what's going on, and they may lash out. But they're not harmful. They're just scared. And your mindset as the human living person shouldn't be to react with fear just because you don't understand it. Get some help. We're always here. The Warren Legacy Foundation, contact us on warrenfiles.com. Contact us on Facebook on Warren Legacy Foundation. We are always available to you. We don't charge to help anybody. We just want to educate the public, help psychics, and help people who feel that they're being bothered by the paranormal. Don't get me wrong. There are certainly negative hauntings. There are entities out there that do feed off of our negative emotions. They're parasites. They're out to hurt us. And they need to be dealt with as well. And we do that. But 99% of the time, it is not truly dangerous.
That's really good to hear, because I was just about to ask what kind of percentage would you, based on your experience, think or know that that it's genuinely something negative that's making things go bump in the night, as opposed to something that's either not negative or not supernatural.
Well, all right. In true hauntings, by the time I am told about them and I get them, I would say maybe 20% are really negative. But that's only because by the time they're brought to my attention, people are being adversely affected. They are being terrorized. But that doesn't even necessarily mean it's an entity. I mean, it took me a great deal of time to understand and accept that people could direct negative energy at others to cause them harm through what are very uncomfortably for me called curses. But if you believe in the power of prayer, you have to believe in the power of curses. It is exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, George, if people want to know more about you, I know we've mentioned it earlier, but again, how can they find more about you, about learning about what you do? Where can they go?
Sure. So www.georgemedium.com. So that's really easy. It's just my name, George, and the fact that I'm a medium. So on there, you will find the way to contact me is a contact section. My social media links are there also, which if you want, you can go there and it will direct you from there. There's links. Or you can go to Facebook and you type in George Wiley Medium. So Wiley is Willie. And also George Psychic, at George Psychic, is on Instagram. So the word psychic is always one that people get confused with. So George, and then so at George Psychic is PSYCHIC. I teach, I demonstrate evenings of mediumship, and I also offer private sittings via Skype or FaceTime or in person if you're in the UK. I also will be going on tour in 2020, and I will be in the Netherlands and the US and throughout the UK. But also, just to remind people that we will be on tour together with the Warren Legacy Foundation, doing lectures, seminars, and we'll be touring quite extensively as well. So if you want to see us, please make sure that you visit my website at georgemedium.com or at thewarrenfiles.com. That's correct?
Actually, warrenfiles.com.
Warren Fives. What did I say?
There's no the.
Oh, I don't know why I do that all the time. I think it's the Warren Legacy Foundation, which is the part that I always think the is included. But yeah, so the tour will be announced later on, probably in the next, I would say around about December. I imagine that we'll have everything concrete. And so that's,
and we'll be starting in February or March, and
yes,
going on for a few months after that.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that people understand that if they want to learn more about the paranormal or more about the cases that you have actually been involved in, and I think that's something that people don't realise is that a lot of your grandparents in Lorraine Warren's cases, you were actually majorly involved with a lot of those as well, and I don't think people realise that.
Since 1980.
Yeah.
I've been on all but one of their big cases or led them since then. The only one I didn't get involved with was the Werewolf of London that came to the United States. At the time, I simply could not believe in it. And now my views have changed. There are spirits out there that do take on animal forms. There are elemental spirits out there that are not demonic. They can also be animal forms. And, that's something that people need to understand. Even my grandparents were known as the seekers of the supernatural. None of us know it all.
Sorry, you cut out there. So your grandparents were known as the what, sorry?
Seekers of the supernatural. Yeah. None of us know it all. And every single day I learn something new. That's why we have a research foundation. so that we can continue to gather evidence, so that one day we can unlock far more of the mysteries of the paranormal. George, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Folks, we will be back next week with another episode of the Warren Files. Take care.
Thank you.